Hello and a very good afternoon. Warm welcome to another season of cycling on Eurosport GCN. It's the Clásica de Almería, the first one-day race on the Spanish calendar this season. And it's a very, very big day indeed. We've got the likes of Mark Cavendish returning to the Koenig Quickstep. We've got Fernando Gaviria here as well. Some very big names in action for we expect to be a bit of a sprint after 183 kilometres. A few climbs early on. We've had some of the top riders out in the breakaway today. We've had some debutants out there as well. And once we get some pictures, we'll let you know exactly how it's going. Well, I'm Rob Hatch. A very good afternoon. And alongside me is Magnus Begstedt. Magnus is over in Bath. I'm here in Spain, of course, after all the winter and all of our hopes of getting back together for a new year. Social and plenty of thousands of kilometre distancing still applying. How are we, Magnus?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Very good. Great to have a new season starting and being back in the commentary box with you, Rob.
Well, we're expecting a big day today. We know that several riders have been out there in the breakaway. It was 4. We were told it was 6 while we looked for live pictures. Around 4 to 5 minutes. Bit of a headwind on the way in. Looking at the profile today, Magnus, can you see anything other than a sprint happening?
Not really, Rob. I mean, it is known to be a bit of a classic, sort of a sprinter's race. If you're looking at the previous winners that we've had, is largely coming down to a big sprint finish. So, yeah, I mean, with the win that we got, maybe there's a bit of an opportunity for something to happen, but I find it very difficult to see past another big sprint finish today.
Well, a big sprint finish is going to be happening, we think. Of course, we've seen riders out in breakaways. Luis Angel Mate on debut for Euskal Euskadi today. He's been out there, the local rider from Malaga. Of course, Almeria is down in the south of Spain. This is the 34th running of this particular race, southeast of Andalusia. And he's an Andalus rider, Luis Angel Mate. He's out there with David Bais, who's riding for the Iolo Cometa team. Oyer Lascano is a Basque rider out there for Caja Rural. Alex Molinar, a Dutch rider for Burgos BH in the break as well today. Well, we're just waiting to hopefully get some live pictures for you. But we know that there's been a bit of a headwind towards the end today, or at least forecast. You'd say that might be advantage sprinters if that were to happen, Magnus.
Yeah, it definitely should be. I mean, like I said, it is largely a coastal route that we got, but and with that we could get some little bits of crosswind happening at certain points, but I don't think it's enough really today to be worrying the sprinters teams. They will all be ready and all hands at the deck there to make sure that this comes down to a big sprint.
Well, this is what we can see up ahead. And we've got a rider on the assault from Bingo Wallonie Bruxelles, head of the race. Nice to see the head of the race for the first time this season. Been starved of bike racing for so long. And it looks as though that the early part of the breakaway might have been brought back. This is Ludovic Robert, the Belgian rider from Bingo, one of several teams from the second division here. We've got some top teams involved, haven't we, as well? The Tour de France winning team in UAE Emirates. But those who are out there in the break, all from smaller teams today. And as we've seen watching the French stage race this week, Magnus, a lot can change, given the fact that we don't know whether there'll be a race tomorrow, whether there'll be a race next week. It's all making out for a combination of different factors, and the fact that we don't know when they will be racing means everything's aggressive. It's like a continuation of 2020.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how the teams have changed their strategy with racing and any kind of bike race, and every single team is flat out and trying to really to put their mark on the season as early as possible. And also interesting to see, you know, even some of the big Grand Tour riders are coming in already in very, very good form. And sort of wanting to show that they're ready and test the training that they've done over the winter season. Somewhat shorter winter than what we used to be seeing for professional riders, but nevertheless, it's still a winter season and some training that's been done, and all these guys are now ready to show what they got.
Well, they're trying to do that now, as you can just see the palm trees in the background having a little bit of a blow. First part of the breakaway brought back. Quite a quiet first sort of 60, 70 kilometers of racing today. Special day for him today. The last few years we've seen all the main sprinters out there. The last 2 years, Pascal Ackermann has been the victor, hasn't he? Even though he's not back looking for what would be an historic hat-trick. This is a chance now with 74 kilometres to go to at least shake up the race and get some sponsor time, even if you aren't going to stop a sprint.
Yeah, I mean, it will be difficult to stop a sprint at this point in the race. You know, we've gone over the main climbs. The break didn't really get a massive amount of time, and yeah, I'm sure that the sprinters teams are going to want a smaller group to go up the road again. 68 kilometers to go to the finish line. It's too long to control a complete bunch as such, and with that, I think we'll definitely see a smaller group sort of drift up the road again. But I guess it's all to play for still, and it looks like, especially the Koenig Quickstep, looked very, very much to the fore there, and being ready for any crosswind sections as well.
Well, it's all starting to split up a little bit. I realise there have been some sound issues and what have you at the moment, so we're going to go off and take a very quick commercial break and try and sort those out for you. But at the minute, you can see that Robert's been trying to get away. That's Tom Paco now, who's in the yellow jersey. And alongside him, having to go for the Kern Farmer team, is Diego Lopez. So attacks coming all the time. Try to follow Zaccardo. Zoccorato, pardon me, from Bardiani. Samuele Zoccorato in the purple there. Hoping to go to the Giro d'Italia, as his team's been invited this year. Off for a quick commercial break. I'll be back sounding loud and clear in just a moment. Yes, I can hear you. Yes, but I'm afraid that's not my, that's nothing I can do. It's the same setup as always here. Yeah, I can do that, no problem. I already did it, but I think the problem is yours. It's not me. It's the codec.
So as we got, what is it, just under 65 kilometers to go here now. Still this big breakaway that we had this morning being caught back, and as we said earlier, it seems like it's a bit too big of a bunch to control on these flatter roads now towards the finish, and it looks very much like the bunch wants to let a group go up the road, but as per usual, as we see so many times at the start of a race, it's difficult to let the right riders go up the road and get that configuration set up and that everyone is happy with. And looks like one of the Iolo Cometa riders trying to go clear there. The relatively new team from Ivan Basso and Alberto Contador that's running that particular setup. And this looks like it's a nice little group now that's just drifting clear. 3-4 riders is pretty much what you'd want at this particular point in the race, and with that, then the sprinters teams can definitely start to control this a little bit more. As we said, big sort of start to the day, really, with a couple of a second category climb, two third category climbs, and a fourth category climb as well that's coming up. But with that, most of these roads are relatively wide open as well and exposed to the wind, so any little drift that we got around any little twists and turns in the course can obviously create that sort of crosswind section that's so dangerous for all of the riders. So a small little break of 4 riders going clear here. We got riders from Iolo Meta, that's Samuele Rivi, that's made that little group here. Looks like Angel Lewis as well, that's gone in there for Carrera. That's Burgos, sorry. But now definitely this group looks like it's going to go clear, and we got a little bit more order back into the peloton again as we're settled down here with around about 60 kilometers to go to the finish. And as a sprinters team, I think you'd be very, very happy to see this particular scenario play out in front of you again, just to make sure that you're not having to cope with all of the attacks all of the time. Beautiful pictures along the seafront here. So we got Zoccarato in here as well from Bardiani CSF. Italian team there in pink and green. So also got number 96 there, which is Ibon Ruiz from the Ken Pharma team, the Spanish team as well, as second division, as well as Angel Madrazo, the we'll call him experienced professional now, having raced for many of the bigger teams in his career, but over the last few years taken a step back. But he had a very, very good Tour of Spain, it's 2 years ago now, where definitely showed that he's still got some firepower in his legs. It's nice little turns from these guys. Obviously really, really important for these smaller teams, especially I'm thinking Iolo Cometa and Can Pharma and to a certain extent Burgos Biacas to get into these breakaway late into the stage as well. As we get our first shot of the bunch, and there, as we said, finding this absolutely ideal. Looks like the Koenig Quick Step on the front here, just bossing things, and a few nature breaks being called as well, which is usually the sign that okay, everyone is happy with this. We're not really going to put any major power in to start chasing down the breakaway at this particular point. So obviously wanting to let them get a little bit of time. It just makes it that bit easier to when you start in the chase later on in the stage, when you deem that it's necessary to start. You know, you got a little bit of space to run into and to start chasing down the breakaway as well. So ideally at this point in time, letting these guys get up towards 2.5 minutes is would be ideal as far as I'm concerned. Still very much, as we said earlier, a sprinter's classic, this one always has been. And if you go back and look at the last few editions, Pascal Ackermann having won it twice, with Kittel and Christoph in second place on those two particular years. Caleb Ewan, Magnus Cort, Lee Howard, Mark Cavendish, Sam Bennett, Mark Renshaw, Michael Matthews. you see there is a trend here that this is very much a sprinter's race, but UCI looks like are getting to the front here now and starting to put a bit of power into the chase already. I find it a little bit strange that they're chasing that hard this early on in the race. Definitely quite windy, judging by the speed that the guys are going at the front here as well. It's intermediate sprint. Not really worth anything in terms of there's no bonus seconds in. It's a one-day race, but a few euros on offer. It can also makes it sometimes, especially for some of the smaller teams, quite nice in the way that, you know, you take an intermediate sprint, you radio that back to the team, and everyone gets that little bit of a boost as well. That, okay, we're on the roll here, we're doing something, we're in the mix of the racing all of the time. In terms of sprinters today, and why we're seeing UCI Team Emirates on the front there, it's definitely for Fernando Gaviria, who I think could do with a win very, very early on in the season to get his winning tally up on the way. He's not last year. I think, to me anyway, it was a big disappointment in how he sort of didn't quite get to the level that we expected him to be when the season restarted. Obviously, it was a very strange season, and Gaviria had been caught with COVID-19 very early on. And for his sake, I hope that he can get up and running here and at least deliver a solid result. I think that would give him a bit of confidence that he's on the right track and on the way back to his former level. And looking at last season and the way the last season planned out, for me it was quite interesting how so many riders kind of struggled with the season and the layup of it, and that forced break that we had in the middle of the season. You know, some of the riders really kind of almost overtrained early on when effectively we had a second winter period of training. And with that, yeah, it was very clear that some riders undertrained, some riders overtrained, and there's some guys that really found it relatively easy to maintain that. And it's almost like the guys that found the passion for just riding their bikes and were happy to just continue riding and didn't really need the structure in their days and the structure of the racing that brings for. They managed to cope really well with that forced break that we had in the late start to the season, and they were almost better off in a way when they could see that, okay, racing is going to start, and then they had 5-6 weeks of really structured training and pushing on to get ready. They seem to be the guys that really got themselves into very good position and were able to hold the form throughout the short and compact season of racing that we had last year. And great shots along the seafront here. Always nice to start the season down in the south of Spain with what most of the time is anyway good weather conditions. Somewhat, you know, not necessarily super hot, but warm enough to ride shorts and short sleeved. Certainly when I was racing is something that I definitely enjoyed. The getting started on dry roads and warm weather just made you feel a little bit safe. It kind of got you around the first couple of days of sort of finding your way around the peloton and getting used to having 180 riders around you again. Somewhat easier to deal with rather than going straight into some cold, wet, hard racing up in the northern part of Europe. I think that's one of the reasons so many riders as well enjoyed going down to Australia to start the season with a Tour Down Under. Although especially in the early incarnations, that was almost felt a bit like a training race, but it became a very big race very, very quickly. Obviously World Tour race in the last number of years now. It seems like we've got a couple of teams here now just starting to settle into a rhythm on the front of the peloton as we're going through this town here. 64 kilometers to go. So still got one fourth category climb to deal with. Going from about sea level up to 80 meters. So it's not a massive climb to deal with by any stretch of imagination, but it's more of a speed bump, really. So, Madrazo, you can see just tucking his food wrapper up under the jersey. Good lad. Making sure we don't do any littering out there. Trying to see who is on the front here. UAE definitely one of the teams that are getting to the front. Quebec, Asos, De Koenig, Quickstep, and Astana. Looks like to me. Just putting a couple of riders to the front here, and as you can see, there's still a little bit of wind about, and that will make for a lot of teams being relatively nervous as well. Just having to make sure that you're sitting very close to the front and ideally in formation with your teammates as well, so that should you get a team that are trying to split the peloton up at some point, at least you can get to the very front very quickly. And it's one of the things that we don't necessarily see Spain as one of those countries where there's an awful lot of crosswind racing, but I've got to say, for all of the years that I raced the Volta a España and Ruta del Sol and so on, quite often that we ended up with big crosswind days. And actually, a lot of the Spanish riders are very competent at doing those particular days as well. Get a little shot of the disc brakes there. That still some debate on, and I think it's quite interesting to hear Chris Froome's take on the fact that he's now had to go across to start riding disc brakes, and how he felt that they were working and or not working in his particular case. He is finding it somewhat difficult to get across and get used to it, but as we said, they're definitely here to stay. Don't think we're going to see any change in that anytime soon. These guys are definitely looking like they're finding a good rhythm out here. Madrazo, they're from in the purple for Burgos Biaca, who's did 3 years with Movistar, and well, and as well as the previous incarnation when it was Kestepan as well. So a number of years on those bigger teams, and then took a step back to Carrera, Delta Marseille, and then now over the last 3 years with Burgos. Won a stage in Tour of Spain back in 2019. And one of the interesting little setups here that's come about over the last couple of years, I find, is that Eolo Cometa, who's, like I said, the team of Ivan Basso and Alberto Contador, riding on Alberto Contador's bikes, actually, which slowly but surely starting to make their way onto the market. So Samuele Rivi, spent a couple of years with Tirol KTM and has now gone across here to Iolo Meta. Team has actually got an invite to the Giro d'Italia this year as well, which definitely be something that most of these riders are going to look forward to and try and get into that particular selection. So Samuele Rivi there, who's I think one of the top results that he's got here is, to me anyway, is the 4th place in the national championships in Italy in the under-23 in the individual time trial. So clearly a man who enjoys these kind of rides out in the breakaway and just plugging away in the wind. Soccarato there on the back here now for Bardiani's CSF. He's got a 2-year contract with them, having moved across from Team Kolpak for this season. So new at the at this level, come across Team Kolpak being a continental team, so doing a lot of the smaller races. But back of the peloton here, still very much relaxed atmosphere, and a lot of riders still having to a lot of catching up to do with the guys they haven't seen for a number of months here now. So something that it's always enjoyable to get back into the racing and see some of your mates. And I think now, especially with the restrictions of travel, etc., it's something that you kind of I think most of us miss is that being able to catch up with our friends. And as a cyclist, this is definitely something that I think we should see that they're quite fortunate to be able to do, really. Not much talking going up front, though. These guys are going to have quite a hard couple of kilometers to go here with the wind to deal with, and the peloton that definitely looks like they're wanting this to come down to a sprint finish. Seeing how quickly they got organized to put a rider each, especially from some of the bigger teams. But I'm just looking through the start list, and especially one of the teams there that kind of stood out by not having brought any of the biggest sprinters in was Bora Hansgrohe. Ackermann, who was originally down on the list to ride, is not here. We haven't really understood why that is. So they're not really coming with a first level sprinter really to the race. Koffert is also coming here with a strong team, but really lacking that pure sprinter in, and largely because Elia Viviani's been out, had to have a small heart procedure. Just realized during the training camp, I think it was that you know, he had some issues with his heart rate. Got sent straight back to see some specialists in Italy, and had a small procedure done, and he's now back on the bike training again, which is great news to hear. But with that, Koffert is Fabio Sabatini, they got possibly obviously the younger brother of Elia Viviani, Attilio. It's also relatively fast, but not yet to show the same sort of speed as his brother has. But for me today, it's definitely the main man, and the reason we see UAE Team Emirates is because of Fernando Gaviria. It's brought Max Chiesa here as well to help him with the leader. Especially this early on in the season, if you can get a good lead-out train going and deliver you in as relaxed a manner as possible, I think is the right way to put it, into the finish, and it's certainly into the final 500-600 meters. I think that's absolutely key for any kind of success. Early on in the season is usually quite difficult to number one, for the lead-out trains to work well together. Everyone is coming in to new racing season, various different levels of training, and some still having had the lockdowns and restrictions to deal with as well. You know, it's not easy to get everyone to gel, and maybe some, should we call it, less days in training camp spent as well. And training camps is usually where you start to dial in these kind of things and see who's got what in their legs and how long a turn are you going to be able to do towards the back end of a race, and so on and so on. It's usually a very, very chaotic opening few days of sprinting. But the Koenig Quick-Step on the front here now. We've got Alvaro Hodge, Mark Cavendish in here. We're going to go for a quick commercial break, and hopefully we'll be back and see if Rob can join us again as well. So just thinking a bit about the Koenig Quick-Step setup here as well, with Mark Cavendish going back to his old team of a couple of years back, where he had such a great time winning an awful lot of races. And I'm hoping that we're going to see Mark back to his very, very best again. And I think especially having such a winning team around him, I think that means there's a bit less pressure on Mark to deliver the big wins, and hopefully that's the right environment for him to really start finding his confidence again, and you know, being able to get back. As something that I miss for sure is to see him not necessarily winning, but performing at his best level. And it's never nice to see when a rider is having health issues and then struggling to get back to his former level like that. So I'm certainly someone who's looking forward to seeing Mark Cavendish back in that blue train again. As I said, they brought Alvaro Hodge, who in his own right is obviously very, very fast, but I wonder whether it's a Hodge kind of sprint. He usually tends to favour the slightly hillier run-ins and slightly more difficult finishes. But saying so, a couple of years back, he was challenging and beating a lot of the faster sprinters, even in the flat sprints. So it's definitely a good backup card for the Koenig Quick-Step to have. But 55 Ks to go. These guys are definitely working very hard on the front here. Not everyone taking their turns the way they should. Starting to build up a pretty decent gap. We haven't had any time gaps. So as I said, about 55 kilometers to go of today's race, the Clásica de Almería, down in the south of Spain here. Got 4 riders up in the breakaway. And those 4 riders are Samuele Soccarato, we got Angel Madrazo, Samuele Rivi, and Ibon Ruiz. Haven't really got a time gap for them yet, but they're definitely working hard out front, and I go by what we can see on screen. It's going to be well over a minute. That's all of the main teams here that have brought sprinters here are now up and starting to control things again. Team Quebec Assos on the front there, having put a rider up on the front. Giacomo Nizzolo here as well today, having brought Max Walscheid. That's probably one of the lead-up men, I would say, for Nizzolo today. They're definitely going to want this to come down to a sprint finish. Nizzolo having raced already in Étoile de Bessèges, having a couple of well, at one podium finish and the 4th place as well on the second stage. It's all the European champion, so look out for that particular jersey as well when we get in closer towards the finish. Beautiful pictures and scenery. As we said, wind not necessarily coming from the right direction today to cause any real drama for the riders, but you never know when you're running along the seafront like this. Any slight change in direction can definitely cause a bit of a crosswind section. As you see, all of the teams now getting into formation here as well. Obviously, having been told what's coming up. Wallonie Bruxelles there on the left-hand side of your picture, and those fluorescent yellow jerseys and helmets. Bora coming up here as well. Still these 4 riders out in the front. I think it's really great to see someone like Angel Madrazo there in the purple jersey, having had a start to his career in a big team with Movistar, and then didn't really get a new contract with them. Managed to find a smaller team to ride for, but still continued to progress with his career. And as late as 2 years ago, he ended up taking a stage in the Vuelta a España. And he's one of those riders who's always pushing and always very aggressive in his racing as well. You can see it's a fair bit of wind about in those palm trees. I think that's why we're seeing a lot of riders really pushing to get near the front of the pelotons, just so you're ready there to react in case something happens, in case another team decides to press on. It doesn't take an awful lot at certain points to create that echelon and create big splits in the peloton. Coming up towards that 4th category climb here. Not really an awful lot to write home about. We've got from sea level up to 80 meters. So yeah, not the most difficult of climbs that we've seen, but it's certainly at this point in the race as well, with the 4 riders out front, I think it's always going to be just wanting to be near the front, not necessarily pressing on and trying to attack up this climb. But at the same time, as we say that, out front here, there's King of the Mountains points on offer. Samuel Rivi, who's making a little bit of a move through that roundabout there and just opening up a few bike lengths. Zoccarato's going straight onto the wheel, following him up here. Interesting to see that they're pushing on this hard going up this climb here now and splitting up that 4-man group, because having 4 riders with the amount of wind that we got about here today, I think would be better for them once they get over the top here. So it'll be interesting to see whether they sit down and wait. So I think 4 riders is a bare minimum that you're gonna need to be able to put some pressure onto the peloton at least, and actually even for the peloton, for the sprinter teams, they would probably prefer to have those 4 riders up there, and the speed being somewhat higher out front, because it's very difficult to ride slow enough, I gotta say, to not catch the breakaway once you needing to start to control the bunch again, and you're getting closer towards the finish. If it's not fast enough in the breakaway, then you kind of want to leave them out there for as long as possible. But if you don't have the speed in the breakaway, you tend to catch them too quick, and chances are then you're obviously going to end up opening yourself up to counter-attacks and so on. But looking at the wind going over the top here now, the riders are definitely struggling to deal with that. See that? It's about 30-40 seconds back to the peloton from the second group or second duo on the road, really. Some of these nice wide exposed roads that we got in this part of the world at the start of the season. This is definitely the type of roads that you prefer to deal with. Get a couple of races under your belt before we get to the opening weekend up in Belgium. Nieuwsblad, Kern, Brussels, Kern. Some of the riders will definitely be going up there. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of the riders will find difficult as well, with a lot of races being cancelled. There's a limited amount of racing available. Getting ready for the opening weekends up in Belgium that are so important for all of the teams racing up there. It becomes very difficult, and you don't want to be standing on the start line of at Nieuwsblad without any racing in your legs for 2 reasons really. And number one is obviously cycling is one of those sports where you definitely need the racing to get yourself ready for the races that you target, but it's also getting used to being in the wheels, in the middle of the peloton, twists and turns, ups and downs, and so on. It takes a lot for you to kind of settle into that type of and feel comfortable within the peloton again. Two riders out front then, Zoccarato and Rivi having gone out there. The other 2 have just been caught back by the peloton. But this is not easy for these 2 either, with the roads being as straight and exposed as they are, a little bit of wind about, it just means that the peloton tends to go that bit quicker. Tim de Klerk on the front there. Man, the Koenig Quick Step relies so much on in every form of racing that they do. Incredibly versatile rider in terms of the work that he can do for the team. Big man on the front there in the blue. So spot Mark Cavendish for the first time there as well. Just in the wheels, with his teammates being well looked after. Looking at a few of the other riders that we potentially could have coming into today's stage as well that we should keep an eye on, and young British rider there, Gabs Calais, I think from running for Movistar, I think he would be the man that they would ride for today. It'd be good to see him in his second season here now with Movistar, to see him get up there and start showing what he's capable of. Very, very fast finisher as well. And also in terms of, we've been mentioning Iolo Cometa, we've not got another British rider there, John Archibald, making his European debut in the pro peloton here. Super fast individual pursuiter and team pursuiter. So they've definitely got a man who can do some fast turns in the final kilometers if they need so for their sprinter. Also, just caught a glimpse there of Euskaltel-Euskadi, who a number of years back now was one of the bigger teams in the world, but pulled out of the sport for a number of years and are now back on into the mix again with that very easy to spot orange livery that they got. So great to see that Euskaltel-Euskadi are getting back into the sport of cycling again. I was talking with Rob Hatch before the race started as well, considering that this is a bit of a sprinter's classic, really, in terms of one-day races in Spain. It's still lacking some of the bigger names in terms of sprinters at the race here, and especially with Bora Hansgrohe Cofidis not having brought their big sprinters with them. I don't think that's going to make it for any less of a hard-fought finish, really. Interesting landscape here. we're talking to some of the potential classics guys that are down here getting ready as well. One of the riders that's really been plagued by injuries and bad luck for a number of seasons now, Niki Terpstra for Team Total Direct Energie. He's here as well, just building up for the classic season. Rode down in the Étoile de Bessèges, but I think more getting some race kilometers in his legs. Didn't really, well, just about broke out inside the top 100 on the individual time trial. So whether it's still 100% or whether it's just, yeah, get on the start line, build some race kilometers, add a few extra kilometers after the stages as well, just to get that big block of training and some race kilometers in your legs before we head up north up to Belgium. Certainly one rider that I hope will find his way back again to his previous level, because when he was with the Koenig Quick-Step, he was one of the main man, obviously previous winner of Flanders and Roubaix. As you can see, it's not easy for these two guys to stay up front, even though they're working so hard. The peloton is just ticking along behind and going so much faster. So it looks like we're going to get a bit of a regroup again. Still pressing on, still wanting to stay clear there, but as you can see, the gap it's too small for them to really, unless the peloton decides to sit up again. And that's one of the problems that you have as a small group that goes up the road relatively late like this. You're always in the hands of the peloton. Whatever they decide to do is, you know, there's nothing much that you can do against them, because as a group of 2, even 4, 6, 8 riders, it's so difficult to stay away from the peloton. Once they've decided that they want a sprint finish like this and they're committing riders, then yeah, it's amazing how much faster the peloton will travel. Team Rally here as well, the American team. Looking forward to seeing what they can do as well. They're here with Nathan Brown as their head man, Colin Joyce as well, Joey Roscoff, a couple of experienced American professional riders. There's always one team that seems to be overperforming in terms of every time they get to some of these bigger races, they're really going well. We're going for a quick commercial break again. These two guys are still persevering up front, although with that very, very small gap that they got now. Still being a good effort by Zoccarato and Rivi. as we said before, it's always going to be difficult to stay clear of the peloton here. We get our first shot of that bike by Alberto Contador. And Contador and Basso really investing a lot of time and effort into that particular team, the Iolo Meta team. Team are relatively young riders as well. Been building this over a couple of years now with a lot of youngsters and trying to develop new talent. Looking forward to seeing what Team Bike Exchange can get up to today as well. Not really brought a pure sprinter to today, but more, I think, looking to get racing on the way, get some race kilometers in their legs. Obviously having swapped bikes over the winter as well, which usually means it's always interesting when you make a bike swap in terms of changing brands and so on, getting into the peloton the first time on that. It just happens a little bit different. We're just catching our two breakaway riders here, having made a big effort, and we now got Team Quebec Assos getting to the front, really making sure that they're keeping Giacomo Nizzolo especially near the very front here. I think it definitely will be him that they're working for today. Victor Campanats, the world hour record holder, doing a lot of the work out there. They've really, it's a team that obviously struggled financially with losing their sponsor at the end of last year, and lost quite a few riders as well, so they had to really rebuild, and done a great job in keeping some of the riders in Giacomo Nizzolo, Max Walscheid and Victor Campanats, some riders who really committed to staying with the team. Really a team that I hope to see really flourish and take on the best out there. Nizzolo had such a great year last year though, with obviously winning that European title, but and the national road race of Italy as well. So national champion there. He had a great couple of weeks really, and I think that really was certainly the making of him. But I think it felt to me like he was really bringing the whole team up as well, and lifting them to a completely different level. And then he had some pretty good results in
Sevi, who
early
6
on in the
seasons
Tour de
ago
France.
was third here,
7th on the opening stage there in Nice, before things went a little bit south with a couple of crashes. So let's see if Quebec Assos here can deliver something today. But it's great to see them getting to the front and really taking charge of their racing. See Nizzolo on the right there, just talking into the microphone and instructing his teammates. Zuccarello coming back down for a bit of extra drinks. instructions as well. It's something that's always, I certainly found anyway, quite nice to have that face-to-face chat with your sport director. Having orders come through on the radio is always good, but you tend to feel that you're getting a bit more of a feel for the racing when you actually get to have a chat with a sport director and bring that up to your team and deliver the information, make sure that everyone is where they should be, know what they should be doing at what point and so on. So many of the teams here now starting to get into formation as well. See the pale blue colors of Astana Premier Tech. Luis Leon Sanchez there in the national champs jersey of Spain at the very front of that group. A few of the riders there from Bingo, Wallonie, Bruxelles, moving up on the right-hand side. So I think we got Rob Hatch with us.
Russia. Martin Hamann also hoping to go to Oberstdorf for the World Championships. And that's a little better as well. He was outside the points yesterday, so that's a better platform from which to build for the second flights. This will qualify him because, again, take into account the backwind compensation.
Great to have you back, Rob.
He was better in January, better than yesterday, but Hamann, and that's good enough to get a Q by his name. And bib 30.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we had a nice little breakaway of 4 riders go up the road. They unfortunately got caught back quite quickly. Seems like the peloton really have got their mind set on making sure that this is a sprint finish today. So with Madrazo,
It's like the lights coming on.
Ruiz and
flick of a switch, and he'll find that in-run position breakaway, and start to deliver.
It didn't last long. It's very, very windy out here today, Rob.
Forfang down into 6th place, as you can see.
Yeah, it definitely
only
is
5 points
mostly headwind.
off, and that's because of
and I think that's
the 20
why
points
it
of
was so
backwind
difficult for those guys to stay
again.
out
So
there as well.
there's
But,
a lot of artificiality
looking at
in
how
a
the
sense.
peloton is forming itself, I think everyone is somewhat worried about there might be a little bit of a crosswind section at some point. You see the teams very much moving in formation towards the front and trying to really keep themselves not necessarily on the front, but very, very near to it.
Well, for those of you who know this race, it's more or less the same route as we had last year. 183 kilometers from Puebla de Vicar in the southeast of Andalusia. And there's the Mediterranean Sea. There is the Mediterranean Sea in the background. We'll be back here in the Vuelta a España, by the way, this year. We've got Roquetas del Mar, where we finished today. That'll be a start town for a stage later on. And here, I'm just going to cut off that looking ahead to the Vuelta, because this is exactly what you were talking about, Magnus. It's like watching the classics in the north of Europe before we even get there.
Yes.
Lots of nerves, everybody out there in team order. You can see that brand new jersey for Intermarché, Wanty Gobert, left-hand side with the fluorescent yellow stroke green helmets. Again, after all the problems we've had today, I'm not sure I'm going to trust the colour on the monitors, but there we are. And the flamingos are around. A feature in Andalusia. What a wonderful, wonderful sight. And if, as we were just saying, when the Vuelta comes back later on, later this year, they're trying to promote, after all the problems that we don't need to talk about, we know that we've all been having, but they're trying to promote their brand of Costa de Almería, the beach resorts around here, which aren't the most well visited in Spain. I think the Costa del Sol down the road, Costa Blanca up the road are much more often populated with tourists. But when tourists can finally return, the local government's bringing the Vuelta here because they want the tourists back. And we're looking at the back here as we go through the other big area of economic input in this area. These are the tents where most of your tomatoes, vegetables, salads are all grown. This is one of the biggest natural greenhouses in Europe. There you go. Sheltered from the wind at the minute, but you've ridden through these in the Canary Islands where they grow the bananas and the tomatoes, Magnus. I know you've done lots of training around there. And it's funny, isn't it? You ride through a little gap in one and a gust of wind will hit you straight away.
Yeah, it's quite strange because you find yourself constantly scanning for gaps in the buildings, and because you know that when you hit one of those, your bike is going to be taken about a meter to the side. So yeah, it's not easy to ride around in these kind of built up areas, and they're really quite the wind tends to change direction around within these sort of tightly built sections as well. But so far so good within in this particular race. But I was saying earlier as well, Rob, these kind of roads this early on in the season is something that all of the riders will enjoy. They're wide open, they're relatively straight, it's dry, reasonably warm. It's a perfect place to sort of start your season really and start finding that comfort within the bunch. You know, you've done all the training over the winter. We've had less training camps than what we probably would have had in previous years as well. And with that, you haven't really had that time with a lot of riders around you. So finding that sort of comfort in the wheels and having people around you again, these roads kind of, they're perfect for that. And especially as we're now getting very, very close to the opening weekend up in Belgium, where things will be vastly different, let's put it that way.
They won't be wearing shorts, I'm pretty sure.
If today's weather is anything to go by, it's going to be a special opening weekend, that's for sure.
Well, we've had a flurry of messages wherever you've been watching around the world, or trying to watch and putting up with our information technology problems. Just to reiterate, there's a huge smile on Magnus's face not so long ago when I returned, and he had to stop talking to himself finally. I've been watching him on FaceTime all afternoon talk to himself, because on Friday, in preparation for my first broadcast of the season, I was told to download a brand new bit of software. All the boffins have been working over the winter to make everything better for you to listen at home. Unfortunately, as often is the case with a brand new piece of software, it decided not to work. So I've dug out the old computer. We're on the old system and we're talking to each other again, and we have 33 kilometers to go today. So thanks to everybody, wherever you're watching, for all your patience. We endeavour to improve things as this season And unfortunately, we have to say it, another bizarre-looking season begins again. Everybody just fighting for position through this bit of road furniture, because we're coming through to the finish line, Magnus, for the first time today. We're going to go through for the first time with, I think, 27 kilometers to go.
Correct, yes. Yeah, it is, at least the riders are getting a good look at the run in towards the finish, and usually you tend to get near the front and just have a bit of a feel and test the corners out a bit to see what lines that are available to you to take through there, and check for any road furniture as much as anything as well, to just understand better how to deliver that final kilometer to maybe 2 kilometers out.
Well, we're going to have two loops, a longer loop of just over 20 kilometers, and then a small loop of around 5 kilometers before we come into what we expect to be a sprint finish on the Avenida Juan Carlos I. And we're looking for the wind as well. It's been mostly headwind coming in from where most of the race took place, actually, on the small hills around the area of El Ejido, famous around 15 years ago for having one of the small football teams in Spanish football that used to produce the big cup upsets. They went bust a few years ago, though, unfortunately, El Ejido, and, well, we'll be, I think, returning to that area in the Vuelta a España as well. This is Roquetas de Mar, where a Vuelta stage will start later in the year. See the hotels, which have rather sadly remained empty, but understandably so, because of all that's happening. Not as many training camps this year, although a few teams have come here off the back of a training camp, and particularly, I think the Koenig Quick-Step stayed around a week, just the team for this race, in their little Corona bubble, training together. Even Movistar, who famously don't have too many team training camps, have had quite a few this year, and the rider with his hand up there is Matthias Norsgaard. His sister's actually in the team as well this year.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting, and good to see how Movistar is actually really putting a lot of effort into the women's team as well, and building on that. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plans out.
And that is a sight for sore eyes for many of you struggling through what are understandably horrible times right now. The Mediterranean Sea in the background, and the riders will have been waiting quite a while in their long winters, I think, to see that. And there's the Spanish champion on the front. Nice to see the Spanish national jersey. Luis Leon Sanchez in conversation on the right-hand side.
Alejandro Valverde coming up on the left-hand side there as well. Bringing one of
starting
his
his final season.
Yeah.
Or so he says. Let's see how it goes. Nervous lookouts for all the road furniture. So we're just about as nervous in the commentary box. With every minute we manage to negotiate here, it's like we've gone through a roundabout again, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is.
Nice to see some of the new jerseys here as well. We've got all of the Spanish teams here, haven't we, this year? Every single one of the Spanish professional squads are racing this race. And we've got Equipo Kern Pharma, who've moved up from third to second division. It's a team from Navarra, where all of the main Spanish teams seem to come from nowadays, apart from Euskaltel, because Movistar are from that region as well. We've got Caja Rural up there, and not too far away where the Vuelta will begin, Burgos 2, and their team rides today as well. But Ken Pharma are an interesting team. They've got a lot of really good, talented young riders that have come through what was the old Lisarte development team, as we see those horrible bollards that everybody's trying to get out the way of. Unfortunately, a real feature of Spanish racing. We've seen some nasty accidents in the Basque Country in the last few years, haven't we, with those things?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it seems like they're getting more and more popular across the world, really. Road furniture seems to pop up more and more, and all of these nice, beautiful sort of little narrowings and widenings and so on, which, yeah, they might look nice, but in terms of bike racing, don't tend to work out all that well.
Croquetos de Mar looks rather lovely.
It does.
Never been lucky enough to visit myself.
Now, I've only been around here for bike racing purposes and training in the past, but never actually gone to visit myself for a holiday.
There's a first for everything, Magnus. I'm sure when we're able to travel, they would love to have your company. As I said, this area dependent on agriculture and tourism. And here comes the UAE Emirates team. One of the favourites for the race, if not the favourite, you'd have to say, in Fernando Gaviria.
Yeah, on paper, definitely they should be the favourite team. And I was saying, I really hope that Fernando Gaviria gets off to a good start.
Oh dear, oh dear. Somebody down on the right side there. Sorry to interrupt, Magnus. And going down with the rider number 55, who's Wout van Hof, is the number 26 from Cofidis, and that's Kenneth van Bilsen. So it's two Belgians, two Flemish riders who've gone down. Thankfully, both about to get back on their bikes. Welcome back to those of you watching on our television channels. And we've just had a crash. Thankfully, it looked to be quite a small one to the back. Wout van Hof riding for Sport Vlaanderen Baloise, the famous Flemish development team. It's got a lot of track riders actually riding on the road here today. The old wily old fox Kenny de Keertela's riding, but it was his colleague Wout van Hof who went down with this man, who we know from the road for quite a while now, and he's a guy who'll be hoping to be in form in the next few weeks with the classics coming up. It's Kenneth van Bilsen of Cofidis, and it looked like it could have been a lot worse, that, Magnus, and I think only the two guys affected at the back.
Yeah, it didn't look like a particularly high-speed crash, but sometimes those slower crashes are actually more painful than the higher-speed ones. But thankfully, like you said, none of them looked to be hurt, and are both are back on the bike again. So that's ultimately the key thing at this particular stage in the season as well, is if you're going to have a bump, let it be a minor one, so that you can get back on the bike and continue again. Because, as I said, we've got such an important period coming up, and with the racing up in Belgium as well, you just don't want to go into those races with any sort of minor injuries.
As you desire, I was going to say La Mondiale, but Citroën. We'll get there in the end. It'll only take us 6 months to get all the names right, Maggie.
Yeah, isn't it? As you desire La Mondiale, Citroën.
Oh, don't confuse me now. Don't confuse me now. I've got As you desire Citroën team written down, but yes, La Mondiale is the sort of second part of the As you desire company.
Yes.
Which hasn't changed. That's still an insurance company.
Yeah.
And Bora Hansgrohe, we're approaching the finish line for the first time, just on the right-hand side. We thought they'd be coming here in search of history today, because they had Pascal Ackermann, who was a winner last year, Pascal Ackermann, who was a winner the year before. This year, Pascal Ackermann's not racing, but they do have two fast men in Martin Laas, the Estonian rider, and the young Jordi Meus, the young Belgian, who is starting out as well. And I guess we'll have to wait and see where they hedge their bets today. There will be the final turn. You just saw that left turn very close to the finish line there, about 350, 400 metres from the finish. Not too big of a pace just yet, but they're getting a look at it for the first time here. And there are those blue jerseys of the Koenig Quick-Step. Mark Cavendish is the Koenig Quick-Step now.
He is. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Mark Cavendish can do. But this finish is really quite difficult in that you have that corner that you just pointed out, Rob, with about 350, 400 to go. But then you got that long sweeping right-hand bend as well with, 100 meters to the line. So getting your sprint timed is going to be absolutely key, and you've got to go into that right-hand sweep at first, really. You can choose your line and make everyone have to go around you the long way. And I think something as simple as hitting the timing for that right-hand bend when you open up your sprint is going to be key to winning the race.
Well, that's that big number 2, 2 laps to go. They're different laps, though. We've got one big lap of around 20 kilometres to come. And then we'll be back for a lap of around just over, 5.8 kilometres on my clock, which is the official road book published by the organisers. And, of course, as in all races of this stature. No more drinking. The bar shots in around 6 kilometers time. So get your refreshments now.
Yeah, luckily it's not too warm out here today. Around about 18 degrees or so. So you can you can go quite a long way without a drink on your bike in 18 degrees.
It gets very, very cold after around 3 or 4 o'clock at the minute in Spain, Magnus. I live down here. I'm down here at the minute. I can tell I've got the heating on at the minute under the desk. It's gone very, very cold in the afternoon. The sun just starts to dip behind those mountains that you can see behind. But of course, these guys on their bikes, they're only just getting warmed up. And there are those new jerseys that we talked about, Citroën, still with the brown shorts. They're just through the centre of your picture. On the right, as we look at it, we've got the whiter jerseys this year of Bora Hansgrohe. Sort of the kind of kit that they've been using at the Tour de France, isn't it?
Yeah.
The special kit they have.
They've gone quite similar to that, haven't they? Yeah, I guess I prefer the one that was slightly darker myself, but, you know, I think you've got to change every year, haven't you?
We'd prefer it. We could spot it a little easier.
Yeah, definitely.
Certainly on these opening days of the season, as we see Kenneth and Bilson towards the back there, just having a chat with his team car, and then I think that was one of the official cars that came up, could well be the doctor's car. And you just saw the graphic. We've had 3 hours of racing now. A few climbs, mainly in the first half. Not really climbs that have ever affected the result in the previous 33 editions of this race, Magnus. It's had some really prestigious winners down the past. A couple of them have returned. Mark Cavendish, of course, is here. No Pascal Ackermann trying to make it 3. Another previous winner who's in the peloton today, but not expected to sprint for the win. Matteo Pellucci, remember him?
Yes.
He is back at the World Tour, and this time, 10 years after winning here in 2011, Matteo Pellucci, the Italian, rides for Giacomo Nizzolo of Team Quebecer Assos. And if he could play a part in a Nizzolo result, that would be a lovely story 10 years on from his own win.
Yeah, it definitely would be. I think looking at the Quebecer Assos lineup, they've actually come here with a really good setup to look after Nizzolo for a sprint. And, you know, just the fact that they brought Victor Campanards here and also Max Walscheid, two riders I think are really key to making sure that Nizzolo is kept in the right position for a very long time. And then, you know, like you said, Pellucci in there as well to really help out with the final lead out.
Of course, we'll have to see how far a lot of these riders have got into the race early on this season. I mean, one of the main criticisms levelled at Matteo Pellucci whenever he's ridden since the sort of 2 or 3 excellent years he had at the start of the last decade was that he struggled to finish races.
Yeah.
You know, you'd be looking for him, and then you'd find out after we put the microphones down that he was a non-finisher after the first 100 kilometres. He had a lot of injuries, health issues, and it'd be key to see if he is still there now and how he's getting on. And we'll look out for him as we look out for everybody else, and we see that the Trek Segafredo team is keeping close to the front as well. Another strong team. Alexander Kamp is a good finisher, but I guess the headline name in terms of a sprint there has got to be Edward Turns, hasn't it? Yeah, definitely had to be. I can't really see past him in terms of a finish for today anyway. So yeah. But problems, sorry again, Magnus, but problems. Look at that. I'm not sure anybody's quite down, but there may be a touch of wheels. There's certainly a slam on the brakes or two there, including and involving a couple of riders from rally cycling, I think. Yeah, it seemed like it was rally cycling that was having issues down there. But it looks like everyone's back up and on the wheels again. But nerves. It's interesting you're talking about Pellucci and the difficulties that he's had, and you know, finding a team and finding a new setup, and sometimes just that little change of environment is all that a rider needs to find that new lease of motivation, and sometimes take a little bit of the pressure off them as well to in terms of performance. And I'm also looking very much to see you know, how Mark Cavendish is getting into this season, and getting into a team like the Koenig Quickstep, which
is winning left, right, and centre already at the start of the season here, and it takes the pressure off having to deliver that win, because you know, it's like you can afford to lose the race, because we're winning tomorrow or the next day anyway. So it's not like you're carrying the whole weight of the whole team, which I think Mark has done over the last couple of years with underlying health issues and so on. So getting back into a team that he was really good in, and is winning all the time, I think it will take some of the pressure off Mark, and I hope that is going to be the key to seeing him back at his very best again and performing at a top level. And even here today, you know, they got Alvaro Hodge in here, who's fast enough in a sprint to win this race. But Mark is there as well as a sprinter, and they're looking after him like a sprinter today. So it'd be good to see who they're going to end up actually choosing to ride for, and how it's all going to be set up.
Mark Cavendish sits at the back there of that little set of the Koenig Quick-Step riders, just behind Florian Sénéchal. Now, when the team lined up and presented their 7-rider squad to the press, they always send a little photo out of the team with the leader in the centre.
Yeah.
Or who we presume to be the leader in the centre.
Presume, yeah.
All the pressure was taken off Mark Cavendish, who, by the way, is wearing 121 there in the dark blue shorts and the royal blue jersey of the Koenig Quick-Step. Looking good there towards the end and approaching the final 20 kilometres. But Florian Sénéchal, the French rider, he is a strong sprinter.
Yeah.
He's more of a classics rider, you'd say, but he's a strong sprinter as well. He wears 1, 2, 3. He wears 1, 2, 4, pardon me, but Alvaro Hodge wears 1, 2, 3. Sénéchal was actually centre of that picture, so I wonder if they were either having us on or trying to tell us that Sénéchal was the designated leader for the day. We shall see.
I think we'll have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, I think it's, even if they are deliberately taking the pressure off Mark, I think that's a smart move to do so. Obviously, we're all still going to talk about him because it is Mark Cavendish at the end of the day. And but I hope that we see Mark back to something near his very, very best. Whether he ends up winning a load more Tour de France stages or not, just seeing him perform at a good level again, I think that would make me very happy.
"21 kilometres from the finish. Mark Cavendish, as Magnus Bäckstedt was just talking about, is back in the Wolf Pack for the first time since 2015. And Magnus, for those viewers maybe just joining us a little late, switching over from one of the many other sporting events that's on this pretty super Sunday, not just of any sport, but cycling. We've had the Tour de la Provence as well. And if you're watching on our digital services, remember you can watch that on demand if you've missed it. But Cavendish is in the right place if we ever are going to see him win again. And I think, as we see his team start to take control now with Tim de Klerk, if we are to see him do that again, he's in the right place. I think the basic thing is the way he was at the end of last season, how the emotion he showed, the love for the sport, the tears that were coming down his face when he realised that it might be it, as it might be it here with his team putting the hammer down. He's in the right place. He still has love for the sport, and his team are racing away as the wind blows.
Yeah, definitely. Tim de Klerk, the man is an absolute machine when it comes to looking after his teams and delivering in crosswinds and just making sure that they're in the right place at the right time all the time. And I think that takes away some of the pressure of Mark again, just knowing that he can trust his team to just basically, when the last blue jersey in front of him moves aside, it's time for him to go. And that's what you want as a sprinter. You don't have to want to really be sort of running everything and making sure that everyone is doing the job that they're supposed to do. You just want to sit there and be taken to the right place.
Look where everybody is chasing behind, pinned on to that far side, Magnus. Try to shelter as much away from the wind as possible. You saw a couple of riders being dropped, trying to help other riders who they thought could stay in, do so. And there's already been a few splits. If you've missed that there, having to chase so hard, so late to the day, could really put you in trouble. There's the rider from the brand new Iolo Cometa team in the blue. That's the team of Alberto Contador and Ivan Basso that's going to be going to the Giro.
That was the rider who was in the breakaway just earlier, Samuel Rivi, who obviously lost the wheel, and it's one of the sort of unwritten rules, really. If you're sitting there and you lose the wheel, you kind of reach your hand back and then give them a bit of a sling to get up there. But look at the speed that we're going at here.
It's travelling. Oh my, it's travelling 70 kilometers per hour, and that's just at the back.
Yeah.
That's the motorbike trying to hold on. Wow, wow, wow. This is the Belgian second division team, riding like they're in the Premier League at the minute, and they've got a couple of really fast finishers. It's Bingol Wallonie-Bruxelles. They have Timothy Dupont, who was third here 3 years ago. They also have the young Polish champion in Stanislav Alniowski.
Yeah.
Aniolkowski, pardon me.
Yeah, they really are a team that are punching well above their weight. Pretty much every race that they get to, we notice them, let's put it that way.
And we can see them in the bright yellow jerseys. Agidazela Mondial fighting a bit at the front.
That was a bit of a crash down the back of the group there.
We've just seen that little bit of a movement at the bottom. We'll have a look who's involved. I'm afraid there are quite a few riders down. One rider down there from the Koenig Quick-Step. A couple of riders involved there from Movistar as well. That's Garcia. That's Garcia, and that's a big problem. Also, Bora Hansgrohe having the number 6 involved. That's Jori Meus, one of the fast riders who we thought might be involved. And this is a big news for Movistar. Winner of Paris-Nice stage last year, Garcia Cortina is down. Now, the rider from the Koenig Quick-Step.
Just trying to make out who that was.
Ivan Garcia Cortina is back on his bike and moving. It looks as though it happened right in the heart of the bunch there, off to the right-hand side.
Yeah, I think just a touch of wheels and at that speed as well.
Jori Meus is the young Belgian riding for Bora Hansgrohe. We were thinking one of their sprint options, but that's not going to be the case now. And the rider involved from the Koenig Quick-Step is receiving treatment, thankfully. It looks like Alvaro Hodge.
Yeah,
Alvaro Hodge is the man down. Alvaro Hodge is the man down, and that is one of the sprint options. So the Colombian sprinter, Alvaro Hodge, is down for the Koenig Quick-Step, being assessed. And, well, whilst we hope that he'll be well enough to carry on riding again in the next few days, he will not be a feature here, Magnus.
No, it definitely won't. I mean, the race is gone already, but just a silly little touch of wheels there, and that was all it took. Very unfortunate.
Oh, and this is his teammate Sten Stales now, who's at the front. Hodge down in the crash with 16 kilometers to go. Does that mean then there's a change of plans for the Koenig Quick-Step? Of course, we were waiting to have a look to see if that was the plan for them. He had been sitting second to the back in their sort of group of riders alongside Mark Cavendish. But now Alvaro Hodge, the Colombian sprinter, is down.
Yeah, whether it's a change of plans or whether, I mean, it changes the dynamic for the Koenig Quick-Step. However, we sort of try and twist and turn on things. They've lost one man, and whether that was a lead-up man or the sprinter, I think, yeah, it means that it's going to be difficult for a little bit more difficult for the Koenig to deliver.
Well, Mark Cavendish might have been the plan all along. We don't know that. He's certainly sitting at the back of that train at the moment. Just in front of him is Bert van Leeuwenberghe, and there's a bit of a fight here at the front. For the first time, we're seeing Team Bike Exchange involved. This, by the way, is their first race of the season.
Yeah, it is the first race for them. But when you're looking at the racing the way it's going now, the wind is coming from left to right as the riders are traveling, and every time there's a team moving up on the left-hand side, they're finding themselves drifting across and squashing the teams over towards that barrier. And I think that's one of the reasons why we had that crash as well. But it makes for very stressful riding to try and stay near the front in that washing machine effect. You kind of move up on the left and get squashed back down to the side on the right-hand side. But the Koenig Quick-Step now smart move there. Tim de Klerk again, I think it is just going to the front and just pulling out towards the left, just to open enough space for his teammates to follow him through.
He's such a good reader of the race in the peloton as well. We see him on the front of a big bunch, don't we, just chugging them along at the Tour de France and things like that. But he comes alive in these sorts of races when the wind is blowing. He knows his way around the bunch at the front.
Yeah, and it just comes down to raw power numbers when the racing is like this. The bigger the number on the screen, the faster you will travel, and that's that. And having a rider like Tim de Klerk in these kind of conditions is just means so much to any team. But splits are opening up here.
And this is Ivan Garcia Cortina, the Asturian sprinter stroke classics man, riding his first race for Movistar. He's in there. He's just got back into that second group there. Magnus got excited. Who have you seen in that group?
Yeah, I just spotted one of the Quebec Assos riders. I just wondered who that was. I didn't quite get a good enough look at him.
Well, if you're looking for Nizzolo, he's the European champion at the moment,
yeah.
Isn't he? He will have the white jersey with the European stripes on. And again, on the left as we look, this is now the front of the race. We don't have a constant ticker here of the kilometres to go, but we think there's anywhere between around 10 and 13 Ks to go from here. The Koenig Quick-Step on the left in their slightly darker blue jerseys this year. On the right, Movistar moving up. And we talked about Ivan Garcia Cortina, who's in the second group, but they have Gabs Culloch, don't they, riding for them, the Yorkshireman here, and he's a very fast finisher.
Yeah, he definitely is, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do, actually. You know, obviously going into World Tour last year for the first year, and having that season the way it was, would have been very, very difficult for him to deal with. But now, hopefully, he's calmed down, he's found his sort of place in the bunch a bit, and can start to deliver.
Oh, you really feel for Ivan Garcia Cortina, because he's obviously got pretty good legs today if he's riding through the groups here. Yeah. He's gone through that next group, he's trying to get back on, but got to be a lost cause now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is, but I think it's also at this point in time you've had 3.5 hours of racing, and just making that effort in the final, it just means that it's more for training purposes than for trying to get back into to win the race today, but it's important in any way.
No De Koenig Quick-Step en masse at the front here. Just 3 riders on the left-hand side with Seneschal. I wonder where Mark Cavendish is, because he was 4th and 5th rider. He had Bart van Leerberger with him, didn't he? And they sort of lost contact. There we go, 13 kilometres to go.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult at this moment to keep near the front and to stay in the right place all the time, just because of that washing machine effect, where you got riders moving up on the left-hand side, and they're getting a bit of a slingshot and a bit of a slipstream from the other riders as they're moving up, and then they get to the front and realize how hard it is to stay at the front, and they start drifting over towards the right-hand side, meaning that if you were the team sat on that right-hand side, it's...
Oh, another crash, Magnus, just outside the picture there. Looked like a rider from Intermarché. In the meantime, you can see Nizzolo close to the front. There is that European Champions jersey. And the Koenig Quick-Step moving back. We're hearing that Mark Cavendish might have suffered a bit of a mechanical. That's why they've moved back from the front. We will see.
Oh, that's not ideal at this point, where the team cars probably stuck way further back behind the other groups at this point.
There are only, I can see, 3 jerseys from the Koenig Quick-Step in this front area now, waiting to see the damage from that crash that we saw behind, that little spill that there was. It certainly split these up because it's a much smaller group now. It's chaos on the roads.
It's a lot smaller group, and I cannot see Mark Cavendish in that group there. Hopefully he did not get caught up in that crash.
26 just moving to the front now is Kenneth van Bilsen. He's returned and better from his own crash. Now this is the result of what we saw, because we'd seen 2 riders from Intermarché down. On the left-hand side, it looks like a rider from Euskaltel.
Yeah.
And on the right, is that an Astana rider? I think it is.
No, Yolometa, I think it is.
It is. It's Fraporti, pardon me, from Europe. This is the crash. I think we're going to see it again. Right-hand side here. Bang. There we go. Not good. Not good.
No, it's never good to see these crashes, but unfortunately, it's one of the things that seems to happen quite often in the early parts of the season when everyone is still a bit nervous and haven't quite got their reaction times dialed in. Just spotting two De Koning Quick-Step riders relatively far back in that group there.
Back with the head of the race.
Victor Campanarts.
A couple of riders trying to move up. Yeah, Campanarts.
On the front there, he's such a key part to keeping Nizzolo at the front at this point, because he can take such long turns in the wind and just expose himself to the wind, but keep Nizzolo in a safer place. And having a rider like that is so important at this, particularly these type of sprints where it gets a bit messy, it's a bit windy, and it's difficult to sit in full formation. Just having that one rider sitting there is and protecting you is key.
A lot of the riders here, actually, the usual suspects are absent, as we see Cofidis on the left-hand side, Magnus. We can see a couple of Bardiani riders up there towards the front, pushing as well. And on the right-hand side, as we look at it now, with those brand new Bianchi bikes, it's Team Bike Exchange. I can only assume for them it's for Dion Smith today.
Yeah, that's the only rider I can really see in there that would be fast enough to deliver a sprint.
Now, look down on the top of the bunch. A couple of De Koning Quick-Step riders still are Florian Sénéchal in there. At the front, we can see Agir Desert as well. Number 67 is Damien Touzé. And just on his wheel, looks like, I think that's Andrea Vendrame. Again, more road furniture. The rider from Trek Segafredo moves up on the left-hand side. Now come the Koning Quick-Step once more. Is that de Klerk again?
It's de Klerk again.
Not sure about it, though. Again, there was a look around. I think we're approaching the finish line once more in the next few kilometres. And now it's Campanarts who returns to the front.
Luis Leon Sanchez coming to the front there as well in the Spanish champs jersey.
Trek Segafredo not far away. We mentioned that they'd likely be looking at Edward Turnz.
A team that's really got their lead-outs together really quite nicely over the last year or so, actually. Often challenging some of the bigger lead-out teams that we've seen. There's Mark. Oh,
127, that is. Yeah. That's Bert von Lerberger.
True.
Just behind him is Sénéchal. Sénéchal wearing 124, and that's the man we wanted to see, I think. The television director telling us that Fernando Gaviria is still there in his white jersey. So narrow this as we come into yet more lanes. You can see exposed on the coast as the wind blows in once more. I'm nervous just watching this, Magnus, as Cofidis again take it up for the front. And Attilio Viviani, you'd think, is their fastest finisher, wouldn't you?
I would definitely put him down to be the fastest man in there.
His brother was third last year.
I mean, Sabatini is usually fast, but he's faster in a different way. He's become more of a lead-up man than a pure sprinter.
And Fabio Sabatini, for all he's ever been up there, has won relatively little in his career as well. He has been a man who's done his best in the lead-outs. Now, 8 kilometres to go. Rally Cycling moving up on the right-hand side. I wonder what they could do with maybe Arvid de Klein today. He's had some really interesting top 5s and top 10s towards the end of last year, the Dutchman.
Yeah, and also a team that always overperforms, really. You know, that every time we see them, they are delivering some really good results. Tim de Klerk out there on the right, just looking around trying to find his teammates.
Andermatt, the Belgian team, now moved up to World Tour. They took over CCC's license, confirming that 2 of their lead-out crashing in that last incident that we saw. Boy van Poppel and Jonas Koch were the 2 riders down. We think for them that it will be Danny van Poppel to sprint if he's there or thereabouts at the end.
Yeah, definitely should be Danny.
Agir Desert, Citroën moving up. And I think we've seen that the Koenig Quick-Step have had their problems with Cavendish. We think getting caught with a mechanical before that crash. We know as well that Hodge did go down crashing. They've still got Seneschal in here, but they're just keeping their powder dry for the minute. Same with UAE Emirates, who are waiting and waiting with Fernando Gaviria. We know that Jordi Meus has crashed out for Bora Hansgrohe as well. They still have Martin Lass. Remember, the defending champions with Pascal Ackermann, who is not here to defend his title. But the biggest team so far, the favourites, are just holding back here, Magnus.
Yeah, they are. And it's a really technical run into this finish with lots of twists and turns and roads sort of widening, narrowing all the time. I think it's going to be really difficult to keep the position because of the headwind. It's not going to be fast enough to keep the riders behind you at bay, and you're going to need a lot of manpower for the final 2-3 kilometers and really take charge of the peloton.
The Koenig Quick-Step moving back with a couple of riders further back there. You can see a slightly bigger train for them, so keep an eye on who comes back. I know that Tim de Klerk has gone back to help out, and I have a feeling that Mark Cavendish is on his way back there. And if they have waited up, that gives you a clue as to what their plans actually are for the end today. Another team we mentioned quite extensively there, Fernando Gaviria, just before we came through the finish line for the final time. Just under 6 kilometers to go once we did that, so 5.5 from here. But Giacomo Nizzolo, calm, collected, cool, waiting and full of confidence. So as you see, a few of his teammates, including Max Walscheid, I think, who have been distanced.
Yeah, probably got caught behind the crash and got caught out in the crosswind there. But Gaviria, you know, last year was a tough year for him. He never really found his legs properly in that season. Obviously, coming down with COVID very, very early on. And I think, again, getting it second time
I think
around.
he tested positive twice, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, he just never looked like himself last year. And I think getting a good opening race here for Gaviria would be a good thing for him to settle down a bit and sort of come back into his old ways. I cannot see
First
Cavendish.
race of the season. Now, Cavendish is not among those 4 riders on the right-hand side for the Koenig Quick-Step. Now then, this was the front of the bunch. And this was all that was left. There is the Koenig Quick-Step team that's returning. And I think it will all be all for Seneschal, you'd imagine, because Hodges crashed out, Cavendish not there, Seneschal, the Frenchman, as things just start to slow down and fan out a little bit. Bit more space on the road, finally.
Yeah, quite a bit more space, but that doesn't necessarily make it any better, to be fair.
Imagine it's going to make the fight worse, but it's a big job that's being done by number 122 there, Tim de Klerk, to try and fight his team back. Movistar are still up there. And Bora Hansgrohe too, let's not forget, we think looking after Martin Lass today. They have a rider here, by the way, do you know what, Magnus, who raced this race back in the day when you were still racing. 16 years ago, Marcus Burkhardt rode this race for the last time, and he's back in 2021.
Yeah, he's had a great career, hasn't he?
Big German former national champion as Astana have a couple of riders moving up as well. Now that Yolo Cometa have Manuel Belletti as a fast man to finish. But for Astana at the moment, number 102 is Yevgeny Girik, and number 107 there is Artem Zakharov. 195 down the back. There's Mark Cavendish. The cameras have found him. And whatever happened in that incident earlier on, Mark Cavendish dropped off the front of the group, so it will not be the plan for the Koenig Quick-Step at the end. Last win for Mark Cavendish, 8th of February 2018. It looked pretty good until the final 10Ks today. He was up there and thereabouts, looking good. Whatever happens, we're hearing rumours of a mechanical. Not going to be a feature at the end today.
No, I don't think so. Even if he does get back on, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for him to have the legs left to do the sprint there. But looking at the turns he's taken, he's looking like he's pedaling pretty well.
He was with Max Walscheid there, by the way, the German sprinter from Team Quebecer Assos. So one less man for Giacomo Nizzolo to help out at the finish. And we're now 4 kilometres to go. The Koenig Quick-Step, having checked out what was happening at the back there with Cavendish, returned to the front with Sénéchal. They're now taking things up at the front in their blue jerseys.
Yeah, all of this is actually playing more and more into the favour of Fernando Gaviria, I think.
Number 125 down at the back is Sten Stales. Looks like he was just struggling to hold on as well. Yeah, and I think a lot of work probably done off the picture there as well by the Koenig Quick-Step in moving from the back to the front of the peloton.
Yeah, Tim de Klerk has done his now as well, so he's drifting back there. I think this is all going to be quite a messy sprint, trying to stay in position all of the way through these twisty technical turns with a lot of wind from different directions as well.
Mosca's up there in third wheel in the white jersey with the navy blue sleeves for Trek Segafredo, Italian rider who had a pretty good Giro d'Italia, didn't he, last year, in support of his leader. Today we expect him to be supporting Edward Turns, the Belgian sprinter. A couple of riders up there in orange for rally cycling. We think they're backing Arvid de Klein today. And here comes Gaviria.
Not got an awful lot of riders around him, though.
I should say, here comes his team, at least, because Gaviria not one of those two riders moving up. And it's all very messy, this, Magnus.
Very messy. Gaviria is sitting there. He's got 3. Oh, that was very, very close indeed.
Looks as though he has Richese with him. I can see the Argentine champions jersey just moving up. But just as I was finishing that sentence, Gaviria briefly losing the wheel, and that's another effort he's going to have to make to get back right on that wheel. And here we go. It says 1 kilometre to go here. Of course, we've been having periodic updates. Let's see if that is correct, because AG Citroën are really putting things on now at the front. We know that they have several options. Max Sarro is a new sprinter for them this year. Andrea Vendrame, we've seen it. It's such a small group now. Looks as though it has been split up in the win, and we are indeed, I think, now in the last kilometre.
Yeah, Movistar getting on the front here as well now, so they must have one rider in there that they're trying to set up for this finish.
You can imagine it's Kullock, I think. You would imagine that it's Kullock. Again, twists and turns now. The Koenig Quick-Step up there with Sénéchal. Nizzolo moving up fourth wheel. Sénéchal waiting and ready to go now for the Koenig Quick-Step, coming up with 300 metres to go. Mosca's there or thereabouts as well. Vendrame trying to come through the centre. Lars is involved as well. Nizzolo waits and waits. 100 metres to go now. Pan round and we should see the finish. And at the front it's the rider who's going to come out and win it, the European champion Giacomo Nizzolo, who comes out and wins it. We didn't see his move. We didn't see him sprint out, but we certainly saw him cross the line. Giacomo Nizzolo, the European champion, wins and is the 2021 victor of the Clásica de Almería. Cool, calm, as collected as you like, Magnus.
Yeah, he was, but he clearly had some very good legs on him as well, because it was in fourth wheel coming in with about 250 meters to go. And as he was about to launch his sprint, the Quick-Step rider doing the lead out moved over to the left, and Nizzolo had to go a really long way around the outside, and still had the legs to come around and take that sprint. But super legs from Nizzolo. Well timed as well.
We seemed to jump from 4 kilometres on the graphic to 1 kilometre to go very, very quickly. They were lightning fast in the final few kilometres. Faster than anybody else, and being congratulated by Martin Lass is Giacomo Nizzolo. And Nizzolo, who we saw really return to form in the last 12 to 18 months, proving that the second part of his career, he's like an old Italian wine. He gets better with age.
Yeah, you see Nizzolo down in fourth wheel here now, and just starting his sprint. And as he does that, see, he gets to go really long way around the outside, but there was just a different turn of speed by Nizzolo, easily winning that.
It's Sénéchal in second and Lass in third. Also involved in the sprint, and right up there was Edward Turns as well. Victory for Quebec at Assos. Crisis over the winter, very much an existential one. Would they continue? Wouldn't they? They have, and they're already on the honours board in 2021. Giacomo Nizzolo has done it, and he's done it showing off those European stars and stripes. Not the worst result for the Koenig Quick-Step with all of the problems that they had as well. We saw the crash for Alvaro Hodge. We were hearing of a mechanical for Cavendish, and Sénéchal sprinting to second place as well.
No, definitely a good outcome for them with the issues that they had. But, you know, you got to be there at the end to be able to sprint. And it's unfortunate when you have mechanicals and crashes, but they're part of the sport. And I think today the best man out there was still Nizzolo.
Well, the questions we will be asking will be, where was Fernando Gaviria?
Gaviria was on the wheel of Giacomo Nizzolo as he opened up the sprint, but just never, he wasn't able to follow Nizzolo when he went.
Well, back at the final few kilometres and into the final few 100 metres, there we are with 300 metres to go. And it was Van Leeuwenberghe there in the blue, the Belgian, just trying to lead out the sprint for Sénéchal. And you can just see on the right-hand side now, white jersey coming around Van Leeuwenberghe. Magnus called it live. He saw the good move from Giacomo Nizzolo. Sadly, we then didn't see it until he crossed the line. Little else mattered. Nizzolo had been keeping cool, and he was the man who showed his strength in the end. Superb win from Giacomo Nizzolo, and Quebec Assos not only been saved, but they're already triumphant at the start of 2021. That'll be a really good feeling of validation for them.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And they look like a team that's come with purpose to today's race. And I think when you find a rider like Nizzolo, he's winning, he's capable of pulling off these big races, it just means that everyone else just pulls their weight that bit more as well. They're committing that bit harder to everything. And I think you're looking at the way Victor Campenaerts rode around with Nizzolo in the last, 10, 15 kilometers, keeping him out of the wind, keeping him near the front and keeping him calm. He's going to be one of the key riders for Nizzolo going forward as well.
Well, he's off to go and get the podium there. Mask up, get changed, get ready for these new protocol ceremonies, but he'll be used for them now. He was close, wasn't he, in Bessèges in his first race at the year. He was fourth on the first day in Bellegarde. I think he was third the day after in La Calmette. And thankfully, someone's going to give him a little bit of privacy there as he gets ready to take his prize. Oh, it's been an eventful day, Magnus, not just in the racing.
No, it's been full on all day, hasn't it?
I tell you, I only managed to see half the race, but I was thoroughly entertained with you anyway. And well done for keeping everybody interested all afternoon. The sun is setting at the end of day one in Andalusia. Unfortunately, we're not going to have a Vuelta Andalusia to bring you this year. You and I were due to cover the race this week. Normally a 5-day stage race, the Ruta del Sol.